Okay, so it's 12:16. I'll keep an eye on like people coming in. But I'll start by welcoming everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name is Karen Kutsavlis, for those of you that I don't know. I'm the owner and chief motivating officer at New England 360 Fitness, where we provide professional wellness coaching for individuals and businesses and organizations. It's comprehensive programming. We focus on deep health, whole person. And so it's fitness, nutrition, stress management, which is finally getting the attention that it deserves, sleep recovery, all that stuff. I'm really excited, like I said, to introduce Kristen Lutz. We went to college together, both majored in exercise science, right? Am I mistaken by that? Or were you?
You're right.
Yeah. Exercise and sports science. And she's been practicing massage therapy for, well, I'm going to let you give your little intro.
Okay.
Where you're at and sort of how you got there. Then we'll get into the agenda and what we're going to talk about more.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me and welcome everybody. I'm excited to talk to more than one person at a time, which is my normal life, seeing patients in my office each day. So like Karen said, my education background is in exercise and sports sciences, more specifically exercise physiology. My bachelor's, my master's degrees are in those programs. And I got to the point where it was time to get a real job. And I pivoted a little bit and I went into health promotions. And so I worked for a company where we would have accounts, client accounts, corporate accounts, where we would go on site and offer a lot of kind of similar to what Karen's doing now. So doing health screenings on site, we'd offer telephonic health coaching, health risk assessment. So that was in 2005. So I had a work from home job. I planned a lot of, coordinated a lot from home. And then when I had to be on site, I would organize the staff, the budget, supplies, and then be on site. So as I was in that job, I had a wonderful boss and mentor who was just so supportive. And there came a time where I just had a blip in my mind that I'd heard about massage therapy. Sure, I'd had a few massages in my lifetime, but it would be a great tool to add to my tool set. I had no idea if it was going to be something I would do full time, but I just love anatomy and physiology. And I decided to do that. So I did a 2-year part-time program while working. And then just through, it's all about sort of not just who you know, but just making good student and professional contacts. And so I ended up at an integrative health center in Boston. And I was able to work with chiropractors, an acupuncturist, a naturopathic doctor, someone who did Pilates, PT, yoga, and just had a nice, well-rounded integrative health center. And so I was there for some time. And again, through professional connections, being at a convention and connecting with someone who I was volunteering with, she was the owner of a neuromuscular therapy clinic in Needham, which I live in Waltham. And so, very, very easy and close. So I ended up making that transition, which during the time I had gravitated towards more orthopedic work and trainings and continuing education. So that led me to neuromuscular therapy, which is a bit more problem-solving style of massage therapy and applying specific techniques to help people get out of chronic or acute pain. And so I was with that clinic for about 7 years. And then recently we parted ways, very amicable, and they wished me luck. And now I'm here in Lexington and I opened my own office as of January 2nd. And my patients were able to come with me and they followed me here. So it's been great, very successful, and has just been a really nice change of pace for me, just having my own space. And that's
So
what I'm
awesome.
here today.
Congratulations on the new space. And I think I love like the integrative health and how you talked about like other people in your network, because I feel as people like us who are, fascinated by the body and what it can do, I think the more we work in it, the more we realize we can work with others to really provide the solutions that people need depending on their unique situations. And that's why I always love having these conversations, because there isn't just always a one size fits all for people, and being able to learn these different techniques is also fascinating to me. So we're going to start, you kind of led into it yourself actually by talking about pain and what it is. And there's obviously a lot of different kinds of pain. So for this, the focus of this conversation, we definitely want to keep it towards like muscular joints, things like that. And then get into what is massage and what is the difference between, like you said, massage and then neuromuscular, more of that problem solving, and then really give people some takeaway action. So for those of you looking to like say what's ahead, I would imagine, and we can use the chat if you want, who here has ever been in pain? I feel like pain is something that like almost everyone has experienced, whether it's been from an accident or from overtraining. I know some of you here are athletes. Daily pain. Yeah, that's so we'll get to that prevention piece. But anyway,
yeah,
Kristen,
there's a fun quote that I like, is that pain is inevitable and suffering is a choice. So we can't avoid it. Just, and there's a lot of professionals who might, their business is injury prevention. I find that what I'm doing is injury reduction. I mean, there's no 100% guarantee. All of my, my patients ask me, will this prevent, can I still get through my Boston Marathon training, with no blips on the radar? And I said, no, but we're just going to reduce your likelihood of having major issues. And also be aware that, when working with one practitioner, you now have somebody who knows how your body moves, how your tissue feels, what techniques work for you when we overwork or overtreat something. So having somebody who's a good point person, whether that's a massage therapist, a chiropractor, an acupuncturist, having somebody who you trust, who just knows your body from that perspective, is extremely helpful.
Yeah. So pain, I guess, I have another question for everybody in the chat. Where have you had the most, where has been like the highest frequency or recurring pain? Is it back? Is it knees? Is it hips? And Kristen, maybe you can tell us the majority of what you see and maybe even different types of pain that there are.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And just to give you a little broad idea of this, is that pain is really complex. So there's not one pain center in the human body. It starts at, our brain has over a dozen different pain centers. So we process things from different areas of our brain. A lot of the cognitive pain is from our prefrontal cortex. There was research that was done that I think it was out of Duke. They ended up discovering that the central amygdala, it could shut off pain. So there's ways to suppress pain in the brain that's expressed with things like anesthesia. And that there's just a lot of research still going on. There are a lot of organizations who work to discover new things, a lot of professionals like neuroscientists, immunologists, psychologists, biologists. So it's a complicated area and a complicated place to live in, and a complicated space to work in. Because we're still getting to know a little bit more about it and how our brain takes in that input, and also out at our peripheries and at the muscle level, how our nervous system is basically like radar and trying to be that system that's then giving the input. And there's many mechanisms to that. There's different types of nerve fibers. There's mediators that get expressed. There's all sorts of really complicated neuroendocrine and chemical actions that are going on. So we take that information with pain science, and then you're presented with somebody, like maybe somebody here, if they've written in on where their pain is, and now you have to, equate that to where that person is, what type of pain they're having, where it is, and then ask all of the questions of, is this familiar pain? Is this brand new? How intense is it? Is this something that's just very low level, that's just more annoying? What is the quality of your pain? Is it stinging, burning, shooting, sharp, dull? All of those qualifiers, while sometimes people have sometimes it's difficult to describe your pain, they're important because it sends your practitioner, whether a PT, ortho, whoever, it sends them down a path of deciding where to go and how to work and what muscles might be involved, what structures might be involved. So again, it's complicated. But that's why it's really good to have some trusting practitioners in your circle that can help guide you. And they're the ones who have all of these ideas in their head and can kind of really narrow down the focus so that, you can get some actionable items to go forward for treatment or for self-care. Yeah.
And that can be one of the, I think, most frustrating things about pain. I mean, and if you describe it really well and in depth, and I think that anyone with their body or what they're working on, whether it's your fitness. There's more than one type of exercise. There's more than one type of cardio. There's more than one type of strength and core. And same thing with nutrition, what works for you, and pain. There's so much. Like, where does it stem from? What is this from? And is the pain where I'm feeling it actually where the problem is? And when we first talked and sort of planned this outline, I don't know if this is a good transition to get into massage, but one of the things you said that really was cool to me was how you're finding the source of pain through touch. So even if someone's hip or their shoulder is bothering them, you can work your hands in a way to see, is that specifically the problem, or is there something else? Can you talk more about that and kind of tie that together to how massage works?
Yep. Yeah.
Sometimes
the pain, I'll try to make it as kind of simplistic as possible. Sometimes the pain is where the pain is. You've overstretched something. We've all done it where my kid was falling from something and I reached down and grabbed it and it kind of like overstrained my shoulder. Okay, great. Well, you go through some rice, some, stretch, rest it, ice it, maybe heat after a couple of days. Like there's a progression of, yep, there was an actual event. I know that something happened, something was overstretched or overstrained, and then you can go through that treatment. I see people who that is why they come in. I know I did this thing. And so now let's work on it and find areas to work on. Then there's patients who, my low back hurts. It's on left side, low back pain. So if I can segue and connect it with neuromuscular therapy, I'm going to show you charts that this is how my brain thinks when I work with patients. And actually I'll pivot away from back pain to maybe headaches. So these are trigger point charts. So the concept of pain is not where you're feeling the pain, is neuromuscular therapy. That if you're telling me when you come in, if I can see this, that you're having headaches, and I ask, well, I have a lot of other questions, but where is your headache? So this red would be the area that you would say anywhere along this area. And this is generally speaking for like 9 out of 10 people. I've got that headache that it's like right in and around my eye. And so in my head, I kind of retrace my steps and know to work SCM. I know to work upper traps. There's another muscle, the splenius group. That direct me, it's sort of like a map, and it's sort of like investigating that I'm hearing you say that your pain is here, but when I actually touch here, there's really no sensitivity. There's nothing that you can palpate here. So we're going to work the other areas around that. Another classic is shoulder pain. Scalene muscles refer a lot to pec, shoulder, that like intrascap, like this sort of pain.
There's no quizzes later, everyone. So you don't have
to worry about all these
Sorry.
So I'll make it. So let me bring it back again. So these maps are in my head because of my training. So when somebody says I have pain here, I go through, it's a bit of a differential diagnosis. I cannot diagnose as a massage therapist. That's not within my scope of practice, but I have to suspect where to go. So when you tell me pain is here, I work locally because everyone wants to be touched and worked where their pain is. And then I sort of think globally. So what are the referral patterns? And that's where the pain system in the body and the perception of pain is so complicated, because with that type of approach with neuromuscular therapy, you're finding hyperlocal irritated places in the muscle that are basically sending a missed signal to your central nervous system. So I can palpate that and I can reproduce your symptom. So if we're in treatment and I'm producing by touching somewhere else, I'm creating that headache pain, we stay there, we hold there, and we treat that and we let that go away. So it's pretty cool. Once I got through the orthopedic training, which was really great for stretching, range of motion, joint work, muscle specific treatment, the NMT work was really pretty next level, I thought, and really helped even patients who I had been seeing up until that point. Like we had more gains from treatment because I was thinking this way. And so that's where pain can be, again, I slipped and fell on ice. I hurt here. I overstretched my adductor, my groin or whatever from falling. We can treat that, help calm that down, bring in some of the calming effects of massage, and help suppress the stress system in the body. But then when we start getting into more chronic pain, headaches, chronic joint pain, a reoccurring injury, that's when we start to think, or I start to think a little bit next level of, okay, where are the other areas that this pain is coming from?
That's awesome.
Did I get
As you're
there?
talking, I can like
Yeah.
relate it to a lot of the like behavior change psychology I work on with clients, because it's, you think you can put a band-aid on anything. You could probably massage something and fix that area for the time being, if that is the right area. Just like anyone can go on a fad diet or a fad exercise program, but if you're not retracing back to the root of the issue that actually changes behavior, or in this case, like where the pain is coming from, I love the symmetry between that. I think that's where in our fast paced, like quick fix society, it's like, well, what can I do to feel better tomorrow? What can I
Yeah.
do to have change tomorrow? But it's really like, unless you take that time to get to the root of the problem or what's causing the issue, you may not be throwing the right solution at what that is. So,
Yeah. And setting expectations too. If someone's been in pain for 6 to 8 months. I've seen patients who have, gone to orthopedic surgeon. They're not a candidate for surgery. They go and get imaging and they're having extreme pain, but there's no structural reason, right? And MRIs can't find trigger points in muscles. That's not what they're devised. They're meant to do. They can't read at that level. And, they'll go to PT, but because there's so much muscle dysfunction, PT isn't effective yet. And PTs don't have as much time as they would like to do hands-on work. They're there to evaluate and kind of move people along with movement therapy. And so when oftentimes I see patients who have been in a spiral of pain for so long, we have to also set expectation that you could feel a little bit better after today. You could feel a lot better, or it's going to take time. But if we can create a change, some sort of change, either within the 24 to 48 hour window, then I ask patients to give me 4 to 6 treatments, depending on their time and financial commitment. So I try to work with them on that, but I ask for a bit of a grace period, if you will. Just like dosing medication, if you don't take something at the prescribed amount to be effective, if we don't time out the treatment to work for you and to help get the ball rolling or to move the needle a little bit, then it might not be as effective too. So the dosing of treatment is really important, and how long you've had that pain.
yeah. And I like, it's almost that all or nothing, right? There's a
Yep.
lot of people that our society, again, it's all or nothing. It's I'm all in on this, or why bother? And another thing we had talked about was trial and error. And that's where, if we can shift people's mindset and a lot of things, health and wellness related, yeah, you might try something and it might not work. That's not a failure. That's feedback. That's feedback that we need to take and use as we devise your overall plan, because we can't say that this isn't, is going to work. So how much do you rely in your treatment plan on the feedback of others? Because I think that's an important thing, of your patients specifically.
Like it. Yeah, that's everything. Because oftentimes my treatment sessions aren't quiet. There's a lot of communication back and forth. If I'm working on an area and I'm not picking up that something's going on, that's part of the protocol is, I'm constantly checking in with patients to find out what they're feeling, if I'm recreating their pain, or if I'm, working on their mid back and they're feeling a connection between that and their low back. Like, oh, I've had SI joint pain, and where you're touching now, I can feel it there. So we hang out there and we let that subside. So a classic one too, if I'm going to share, like, I know you'd ask people about their common ailments or injuries, but people coming in and claiming like, I have sciatica, and I go, okay, just go through, have you been diagnosed? Have you had any imaging? And going through all of that. Some people do have true sciatica, and there's a lot of local irritation around that. And that's, it's a nerve root is being compressed and irritated, and it's causing sharp shooting, numbness, tingling down the back of their leg. They often are very uncomfortable sitting, tough to get into a certain position. But what can also happen is someone comes in and they feel that, they think back of the thigh, back of the glute pain. They immediately kind of self-diagnose sciatica. But I've recreated pain by working on glute medius and minimus. So I can have them side lying. I work on the side of their hip. So like the side right below that, that kind of pelvic bone that you can feel right at your waistline, right below your waistline. and I can recreate, and they'll go, oh my gosh, you're pressing here. I can feel that down my thigh, down the back, by my hamstring. And so we treat it and we see if we make a change, because maybe it wasn't true sciatica, or maybe there was an old injury, but everything, the muscles around an injury always respond to the environment. And it's very noxious when you have nerve pain. There's a lot of the chemical mediations and all the response of having pain in your body, that all still takes place. And everyone's threshold at which they feel that is different. We're all wired a little bit differently. People who will say that I have a high pain threshold, that may be very true. And I don't know, it's such an individual thing, but everyone's thermostat point for the point at which they feel pain is just different. And yeah, so that is a good example of sourcing the pain from somewhere else for a common injury or a common ailment or pathology, that it may not be that pathology. But again, I'm not in the business of diagnosing, but it's just getting feedback from the patient during treatment, communicating with them, giving them a little bit of education about what I'm working, why I'm working, and what this type of work is intended to do, so that they can leave here and we say, okay, well, if that really caused my pain, I'm walking out of here feeling better, I'm going to go self-treat myself at home. I don't want people reliant on coming here all the time to see me. I'd love it if people are here for more maintenance stuff, just always good to check in. But if I can help somebody get out of pain and then maintain it on their own, that's it. I mean, I like seeing people, but I don't want you to be here if I'm not helping and you can't do some things on your own to keep things moving forward. Yeah.
Well, some of it sounds too like this is a painful process. How much of it, I mean, anytime you're trying to make change, you kind of have to embrace the suck, right? And like be willing to go where you're uncomfortable, not necessarily like leaving your comfort zone, all that stuff, but like providing that feedback. How much of getting a treatment hurts, or is it supposed to hurt? And can you change the amount of pressure you're using or whatever throughout any particular treatment? Just so people aren't like, whoa, this sounds excruciating. Why would I do that?
Right. Yeah. So the clinic where I just came from, their tagline was "Hurt so good," and I think we all kind of know what that is, right? Like, this is not hurting me, causing me such pain, I'm going to jump off this table and run out of here. But it just hurts so good. Like, I know this is where the work needs to be done. This is where, I'm going to let Kristen kind of hang out and work through this. But I often use a couple of different scales for intensity. And yes, so the answer is yes, I will definitely adjust intensity. I don't like to use the term pressure as much, because it seems like pressure to me is just like hammering down at a muscle. To me, it's intensity, because it stays relative. Because I think often people come into treatment, they're like, give me all that pressure. And it's a reflection of wanting to feel pain, or that pain body side of them. Whereas if I just say intensity, let me know if I can adjust the intensity. That's a little bit more, I guess, palatable, and it just feels less like ego driven. So a couple of different scales. I'll use either green, yellow, or red light. So I tell people I want us to be no more than that yellow light. And so you can just say red light, or you could say too much, back it off. I also use a number scale. Some people I'd rather someone stay between a 5 and a 7. Anything over 7 is, particularly with trigger point therapy, meaning I'm pressing on a spot and you're going, oh my God, that's a 9. It often won't relax and release. It's just too much. So that's like over treating an area. So I give people zones and I'll check in with them, but to be honest, it's up to them. I have plenty of patients who definitely will let me work more intensely and not say anything. And I can kind of tell. So I just adjust as normal. But I do have patients who have fibromyalgia, which is a chronic condition, and I have to work very slowly with them. I can work intensely, but their intense is different from someone else's intense. They're a bit more sensitive to even just the touch of my hand on their skin. So I have to proceed slowly so that I can kind of sneak by the fight, flight, or freeze protection mode that their nervous system is in, and then work with depth and work with some intensity and work on the places that I need to help them. So yeah, so it's yes, it is painful, but it doesn't have to be terrible and awful. And most of my patients who come in, they kind of like, they know what they're going to expect coming in, but they know that I'm applying techniques and they're in control of how intensely we work. They're in the driver's seat. Yeah, they're the ones who have to walk out of here with their own body, not me. So that's their choice, and that's how we learn. So again, like the trial and error, I'll have a patient come in and say, I think we can take a little notch up, or some who go, I think we were too aggressive. I really had a lot of rebound tension, tightness. I had to heat a lot. I needed some Advil, and it lasted a little bit longer than normal. So then I take notes, and I have my client notes from each session. And so I'll jot that down and adjust for the next treatment.
Awesome. So I get a lot of people as like a health and wellness coach, started in fitness, personal training. So I get a lot of people who are like, who almost think like I'm a PT or a massage therapist. And I'm always like, no, that's again, like you're saying, I can't diagnose. I can help you like get to the next level, wherever your starting level is. So as we like shift the conversation into what people can do for themselves, I'm going to start right with foam rolling, because I have more people come to me, especially runners, who are like, my leg is killing me. It hurts so bad. And someone said I should buy a foam roller. So I got the one with the knobs, thinking that would be best. And I'm always like, okay, good job for like taking the initiative. But if your nose was broken, would you want to go and like rub and put all your body weight on it? Like, you need to have it checked. You need to have it, so let's say they're clear for exercise, but they do have to work on, or they're clear for foam rolling. Like, can you get into foam rolling basics? And like what people, is that one of the best tools? And then we'll kind of go from there. We have about like 10 minutes of really good talking left. And just so you know, like the two higher points that people mentioned are like shoulder and neck pain, and then like hamstring, calves, hip flexors, that sort of thing. So we can kind of focus on those key areas for self-care in between someone like yourself.
Yeah. So that, and the concept of self-care means that someone thinking about behavior, someone is ready to do an actionable thing. And the biggest challenge I find, a barrier for people doing self-care is finding the time. So I'll encourage people to just, we all have like triggered moments throughout the day. We might get up, stretch, or get up, brush our teeth. Find a moment in your day where you can just add in 5 minutes of this, and it's triggered by something else. Like, okay, I just brushed my teeth before I go pour my cup of coffee, or after my cup of coffee, I'll go with the foam roller. Like, try to just carve it into the day in a very simplistic way. And you all know what your general pattern of the day is. Just try to make it routine. Does it matter what time of day? I always say not really, as long as you're doing it. But if you want an optimal time, that depends on, do you want to do that to loosen up before a workout? Are you working out early in the morning and really need to like warm up? Or at the end of the day, it's really nice if you have a very active job or you're on your feet a lot, and that's a nice way to wind down from the day. So kind of think about what you're trying to do. Do you need to warm yourself up with the rolling? Or do you need to like end the day with it? Or if you work from home, can you take maybe a few breaks during the day, have your foam roller by your workstation or your office, and just, put the timer on 5 minutes and go through a little routine. So what I like to recommend for people, and those who like to get the really extra firm, nubby foam rollers, there's a few different kinds of soft rollers out there on the market. Melt Method is, they kind of came out with it a little bit out in front, and they're a little bit more expensive. I just go to Amazon and search for soft foam roller. That works really well for me because it's a nice way. So I don't know. So this is one. They're like all different colors. It doesn't really matter. But it's got much more give. This is the one that I have here in the office. Yeah. So when you're rolling on areas, that are a bit more bony, if you're rolling along your spine to warm up, if you are just not a very muscular person, then no give. Yeah. Give, no give. So I like to start with this. And then if you use this foam roller on areas and find that, it works good for some spots, but not others, then go get a firm foam roller and just switch it up. I tend to like the longer rollers because then you can lay on the ground from head to toe. When you're rolling one quad, you can bend the opposite knee and get a little bit of adductor. Like, it just gives you a little more real estate to use when you're rolling. Again, so I would start with the soft roller. People who do tend to be a little bit more sensitive to touch or pressure, they don't really like to go for a treatment that's really deep tissue. The soft roller, it can still be intense in some areas where you're feeling like knots or tightness or a little bit of stiffness, but it's much easier Yeah, it's a little kinder. So I just recommend that people start with the soft roller and then go upgrade from there.
And what's your recommendation? I've heard a couple different things. If people ask me about foam rolling, I typically say roll above or below where the pain is, because if you don't know if there's something there, you may not want to put all that pressure or intensity on what could potentially be injured. So going above or below at least gets blood flow to the area. But what's your recommendation on that?
Yeah, I'd agree. I kind of say the same thing. Like, don't just go right for it. You want to sort of scan the area around it, and you might find some areas that need addressing before you try to get in there. And if you're finding that, it's too much to lean a roller on it, whether you're putting the roller against the wall and trying to do it or laying on the ground. Another nice tool that you can do, the Theracane is a brand name, but they've got, there are some that just looks like a shepherd's hook. It's really nice to just, like, people asked about neck and shoulder pain, and you have these handles here so that you can actually get leverage, because that upper back area is a really tough area to get leverage. So I'm just pushing out and away, and I can get to all of these knots. The one I think thing that this could use is more of like a grippy rubber end, because I feel like it does slide.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing. Like, if it was more like a bouncy ball at the end, I think that would be pretty cool. And maybe there is a brand or a product out there. But this is nice because it's got, like, you could put that right on your thigh. You could turn it up and use it on your calf if you just need to find some specific spots in the muscle belly. And just try not to roll on a bone. I mean, you can scan the spine with the foam roller, and you're going to hear probably some like cracks, creakles, and all that stuff. But if you're really digging in and you're finding that it feels not hard like a muscle knot, but like the front of your shin, you have the tibias right there. So, like, try not to press in on the hard bony stuff. Go off to where it's like more of a firm muscle feeling. But yeah, this is where you can get a little more site specific. If you're feeling like you want to avoid putting your body weight on something, there's this. This is a cool tool. Thumby is a brand name, but this is a different one that I actually like because the bottom of it has a suction. So and it matches my wall, which is cool.
It does.
Yeah. So this you can actually stick to a wall. So if you've ever had trouble where you're rolling with a lacrosse ball, a tennis ball, and it keeps falling, this will suction to the wall, and you can do treatment on, like, around your glutes, your low back, right up and around your spine, right here in the back, and just lean in and just do little back and forth, up and down, and then keep moving it along your spine. You can also roll, like, the bottom of your foot. You can turn this on its side and use it as a roller that way. I forget what brand name this is, but again, Amazon has these little tools. So if you want to get, again, more site specific and just narrow it down after sort of scanning the area and trying to find any other areas of tension through that. And if you're using these tools, or you're using a tennis ball and you're finding that I am not getting to it, then maybe just go see somebody who can narrow things down for you. When someone comes in, I look at how somebody is sitting. If they're like this and their hip is hiked on one side, if their knee is knocked in, their one arch collapses, I'm thinking, like, what is pulling this down? What, like, is this happening? Or is it more likely that, like, gravity is pulling your shoulder down because you reach, you carry something, you carry a bag on this side. So we've got to work. So this is thinking about what could be contributing to those areas of pain. Like, this works really hard to stop this from happening. So this hurts, but this needs to change. So that's where you can do some self-treatment, and having somebody have eyes on you to just say, hey, I'm not saying you have scoliosis. I'm not saying you have some sort of functional problem, but I'm noticing, like, this shoulder's low, this hip is rotated this way, your foot collapses on this side. So let's just work with it and try to counteract it just a little bit and just give you a little bit of balance around your joints. So tools.
It's funny. I told my husband before, like, we'll be walking somewhere and I'm like, man, that person's calf looks really tight, or like, so, and it's not that I judge, or it's just, I look at movement patterns the way you look at the way the body moves, and it's
or like, oh, they must have blown their Achilles. That calf is really narrow and
atrophied. Yeah. Or look at that imbalance there. And it comes from a, like, oh, I wish I could say, like, hey, this. Anyway, that's out of my scope of just being human. Right. But
But
Anyway,
you're just curious and you observe stuff, and that's kind of what we're here to do, is to just reflect back what we see,
yeah.
asking someone to move. And if I have somebody who's a bit more, unathletic or frail or immobile, I have them move different ways or ask them to show me what hurts and how they're moving. Everyone puts socks and shoes on differently. So tell me, when you tell me you're putting your sock on and your back hurts, are you sitting? Are you standing? How do you move? And for more kind of fit athletic people, I have them do more functional movement because they need more of a challenge to elicit that pain or that problem. Yeah.
Well, and really movement is the one thing we sort of take for granted. It's also, I mean, like breathing, how many times do we talk to people about like, oh, we don't think about breathing. We don't think about the way we move. Even if we have pain or imbalance, we're still going to get up and move from here to there because we need to, because we tell our brain to. We might limp, we might, whatever it might be.
We don't know it's happening. Compensation that just happens in the background. Our body is really great at masking and trying to get away from things. A great PT I used to work with would always say that tightness is a product of weakness somewhere. So if you're weak somewhere, something else is going to tighten up and take over. Postural muscles that are meant to just stabilize are now movers, and they're being way overtaxed. And the point at which that straw that breaks the camel's back is different for everyone. So those all of a sudden I couldn't lift my foot off the ground or something is well, that was probably building for some time now. And then it's trying to come up with some strategies of why that is and where can we work and how can we change that. And sometimes we don't find out the why. We just treat the area and someone gets better, and we just try to help them get into a normal fitness, exercise, and some sort of self-care routine.
Yeah. Well, like you said, the brain is super smart. So the body will adapt and create new movement patterns that are not symmetrical, or where there is that compensatory movement that, it's picking up the slack for something else. And I always tell people, I'm like, movement is key. You don't have to be an endurance athlete. You don't have to be a power lifter, but as you get older, especially, what's worse than falling down in Walmart is not being able to get back up after you fall down. So movement is key. So we have a couple minutes left. What would be your easiest tips for starting for people that just feel like they might be tight, have that pain, that weakness somewhere? What would, to you, I mean, we've gone through a lot, but
yeah, I would say, like you said, get up and move. I think none of us, I don't think any of us could say that no one's ever told us to don't sit at a desk for 6 hours in a row. If you've ever seen a tree out by a windy beach and we see that the trunk goes this way and then the branches are going this way, well, the tree is responding to its external environment. The wind is pushing it that way. The sun is that way. So it grows that way. So if we're sitting all day, our brain is going to perceive that, okay, our hips are going to be bent at 90, our knees are bent at 90, and we wonder why we have tight, weak hamstrings or tight, weak hip flexors. Don't assume that. There's a lot of people who, in spite of sitting all day, they have pretty strong quads and hip flexors, but just think about how you use your body during the day and try to counteract it in some way. So if you're sitting a lot, get the standing desk, move around, do some very basic, sitting down on the ground, doing a few stretches. Twisting is really good. So rotation, we don't tend to move this way a lot during the day. So even just doing, a simple breathe in to make yourself tall and then twisting to the side. If I can, I'll share some resources and things that I like to use or access. For end of the day stuff, reduction of head and neck tension from being at the computer. This is called the cranial cradle. Another PT friend loves this for her patients. So it comes with a little manual and all different options for how to use it. So you kind of just lay on a comfortable, not too soft surface, and you do a little release for 3 to 5 minutes. So that's the cranial cradle. These two are kind of cool. I have somebody who keeps calling them the Michelangelo tube. It's the Da Vinci tool. And there's a couple different ones, and they're meant to be, again, base of the head for good self-treatment. If you do tend to have a lot of eye pain from computer screens or neck tension or a type of, some people get cervicogenic headache. So it's basically a headache coming from your cervical spine. These are great tools to help with a little bit of relaxation and release. And they you can see how they're like kind of made for everyone. There's rounded, you can go really pointed. So it just gets more intense based on whatever pressure you prefer. And then this is a more firm, stiffer plastic. Yeah. And the last thing I would say is like get your village together. So look in the area, kind of anticipate that you might have an issue somewhere, whether it's an orthopedic injury, you know that you played sports for years and you constantly were pulling a certain muscle. Go to your primary care practice, either get a referral, find in-network orthopedic specialists in the area. The New England area is loaded with really, really excellent practitioners. Also, ask around. If there's someone who really loves their PT, they have a regular chiropractor, acupuncturist, massage therapist. Really kind of do your research and have your team sort of in place. See if they'll do a free consult, see if you can just go get an initial treatment. It's always good to have an established relationship with someone before you're in crisis, because you're then just like out of your mind trying to find the first person you can get in with, and they might not be a good fit. You now have me and Karen as good points of contact. Go to our social media pages, follow who we follow. Through my course of education, there's plenty of strength and conditioning coaches local here, people who do a lot of trainings with athletes, people who specialize with shoulder injuries. You'll see who we're following, follow them. They, as much as when the internet first really came out with a lot of info through YouTube, there's a lot more quality stuff out there, but you have to follow the right people to get it. And don't piecemeal all the things that they say, but use them as a resource. Find out who we like. And again, just try to find some people in your area that you can have as practitioners, that if something happens, you can call them. They already kind of know you. So you're going to get an in a little bit if you're like really in need of something that week or that day. Yeah, I would say that's my biggest thing is treat yourself as like you are a working athlete and have your pit crew ready for when you need it.
Oh, I love that. Well, and I think it ties back to what you said in the beginning too. Like, pain is inevitable. You are going to get hurt. I tell my clients the same thing. Like, I can't guarantee that you're not going to trip and fall and get hurt just because you're doing this program. Life happens, but the better prepared you are, the less recovery time you'll have, which is really a great benefit to practicing things like this on a regular basis. And like you said, building your team. And yeah, I know we're even over because we could probably keep talking about this for so long. But for those of you on the call that are part of like my corporate wellness programs and part of the corporate clients that I partner with, Kristen is available for corporate massage sessions as well. I'm going to throw that out there, which is even just a great time, like she said, to build that network and ask questions. You're not committing to anything. And Kristen, I'll let you say where people can find you if you want to look up her info, and we'll follow up with an email as well, just so if you guys have questions, you can reach out to us, but then you'll be connected to us. So where can everybody find you, Kristen?
Yeah, you can just search Lutz Massage Therapy. I'm on Google Maps. I just have a scheduling website, keep it real simple with just a little quick intro and bio. But you can always email me, kristenwlutz@gmail. Karen, like, you'll follow up. So it's Kristen with an E, W Lutz, all that stuff. So yeah, so email or just finding me through Google Maps, setting up an appointment. I also have Lutz Massage Therapy on Instagram. So if you ever need to send a message or just follow along, I'll be having an open house on Tuesday, March 21st, mostly because the date is 3/2/1/23, which I thought that was kind of cool. So from 4 to 7, we'll just welcome people in with just refreshments and some appetizers. And my former boss and mentor, I think, is going to do some intuitive readings. I think I'll have someone in to do some jewelry making. Just because I have 2 extra empty offices right now that I haven't started subletting. So just to find a fun use of the space. So if anyone's in the area or knows anyone in the Lexington, Massachusetts area, I'll be sending out some invites and posting on social media about that. So you'd be welcome to come down.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you everybody for taking the time to join our discussion and listen. I think this is such a great topic. I love sharing people who I respect in my network with everybody else. If you have questions how to reach Kristen, you can always reach out to me as well. I'm just Karen, Karen. I survived the Karen thing at any360fitness.com. So I appreciate everyone's time. And yeah, I hope you all have a great less pain or painless day. So yeah.
Thank you for having me. Everyone have a nice Super Bowl weekend.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.